Hey guys, a video I want to do today on the series Adolescence and my take on it and how this could fit into enmeshment as well, and also just for the future of men and what men can do, and some, don't want to talk too much about it, but just obviously why I think I felt quite triggered. And I think people who are into self-improvement and spiritual growth can feel that. And I know this is probably not going to appeal to most people because in terms of the show was showing more the problem with young people coming through, so perhaps you are a parent as well, so this might appeal more to you. And it's more, I think, how I can relate to being in school as well. So yeah, when I was in school, because this sort of thing with the incel culture of being in the bottom sort of 80% of men that are not attractive to women, and the goal is always to get into that top 20%. So that is a stat that can be used, the 80-20 rule, Pareto principle, just like with work, the 20% of people maybe make 80% of the money in the world. You want to be in that top 20%, top 20% of people who are attractive. And that's with women as well. When women walk down the street, maybe there's the 20% of women that stand out above the other 80%. So, it's just a common thing. It's not like this big truth of like, oh my God, this is alarming. I'm settling now. I'm going to be, I'm never going to meet anyone. I'm virgin for life, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to turn to online forums and blaming women, blah, blah, blah. You have to accept reality as it is. And the reason the show probably annoyed me a lot is because obviously I could relate to that when I was in school as well. And that men can always improve themselves. They could, at 13 years old, I mean, when I was 13 as well, it wasn't until I sort of got to mid to late 20s that I really then got into the self-improvement, and then started to actually have more of a dating life, and to then start a business, to make some money, get into the whole spiritual growth side of things, learning more about my health and all these other things. So it wasn't till I got to there later in life that then I started to improve and noticed maybe I became more attractive and more or less getting into that 20%, which I never thought I was in. So, that is the overall message, which I think is just, when you're 13, you're in school, there's a lot of stuff around looks and confidence, and there's the bad boy versus the nice guy kind of category really stands out. You've got like two types of guys, basically, the bad boy or the nice guy. You don't really, that's pretty much it. And then as you grow older, you start to become somewhere in the middle, from both sides, so yeah, I think that's why it left a bit of a sour taste, was that, and it really gets me seeing how a lot of these people stand out. I know Andrew Tate was named, which I don't think is good to start naming people, and it can feel like it's a bit of an agenda that's being pushed across. But yeah, I think when guys do turn to blaming women and maybe more misogynistic stuff is very victim-based things as well. I can feel the frustration and I can somewhat relate to it as well. And but I always catch myself aware and think this is being a victim. If you're in that top 20% anyway, you're not really going to be, blaming women for all your problems. You're going to just be enjoying it. Brad Pitt is not, listening like, oh yeah, all women are like this, and, so we have to accept that, okay, but we can always improve, and that is the great reward. And, I think it upset me a bit that, the younger generation now are not going to be taught that, they're not going to really find out about self-improvement, or they probably are as well through certain videos, but sometimes you have to really go through a lot in life till you get to the point where you're like, okay, and you've kind of maybe even given up, and then you can take things to the next level. So there's that. And yeah, perhaps the way it was sort of put across as well, is a certain agenda. it's focusing more on men being the problem than women playing the role as well. Whether they're constantly on social media and doing all of these other things and sexualizing themselves, you know, but this is not what it's about. It's about taking responsibility and improving. So that was my thoughts on it, and that, you know, men can always improve. You know, like the guy, 13-year-old in the film, you know, he could go on to be a millionaire. He could be a millionaire by his 19, 20. You know, he could, you know, go down to the gym and do all of this stuff and focus on himself. You know, he could be a footballer, who knows, you know, some sort of famous person making all this money, and then he's in the top 20%. You know, he could be at 21, 24, 25, then he's sort of in the top 20%, and he always believed that he'd be in the bottom 80%. So I think this is just what happens in school. Things can be quite cruel. It's more like you're going to be like this forever, and people like putting other people down because of their own insecurities as well. So it is just what school is like, you know, and being a young person. And I think in a way we have to go through this, you know, to come out on the other side. But if you're sort of reflecting and you've seen that and you realize that and you're finding it quite difficult, just know that, you know, starting tomorrow, you can then just start working on yourself and improving and taking things to the next level. It's only when you really give up that and that all of the progress stops. And, you know, the whole thing with enmeshment as well, as I was sharing on the last video, the self-esteem issues, all of this stuff ties back into enmeshment, you know, to sort of, you know, become enmeshed with the mum, because you're kind of like, reality and life out there is not very good. It's better being at home with my mum, looking after my mum, you know, calling her a few times a week, checking in on her, going to visit her, you know, hanging and looking after her. You know, all these things are much better than going out and living my life, because there isn't much out there for me. So, you know, and this brings up a lot of frustration, particularly in men, you know, as well, when they feel like they're being held back. And this, what I think ties into this misogyny and various other things. So that stuff needs to be worked on. But I do believe when people are enmeshed and they become unenmeshed, all of this stuff fades away. Or if you've worked through a lot of the enmeshment stuff, you know, this is true. And it's just a case of people don't see this as being a wound, you know, that they're enmeshed to their mum, you know. And it could be something very early on where the frustration is there, particularly in school. So, you know, if you on that path to removing that, you can then have a healthy relationship with someone else and start your own family, and also, yeah, just to keep working on yourself and becoming a better person. So thought I'd do that video, guys. Hope you're well, and hope you enjoyed the video.